use a tool, you know, it just depends on how important it is. If it's a mission critical build, you might want to not rely on some of those tools and do your own code for the first part of it, file some kind of initial patent, and then after that, use it to iterate. Don't know. There's no real good answer. It's a tricky area that just has to be balanced.
I wanted to ask about...
There you go. Yep.
I wanted to ask about patent rights in like different countries like China, Europe, and the US, and also the difference between defensive and offensive rights.
Sure. So once you file a patent anywhere in the world, I usually have my clients start with a US provisional because it's easy. That gives you 1 year to file for some other kind of international protection, usually by filing what they call a PCT application, which is an international application that allows you to take your disclosure anywhere in the world, gives you 30 months to figure it out. So it's one long process that drags on for 30 months, which is actually a good thing, because you can use that time to go engage the market and decide how much you care. And then once you get to that 30-month point, you can just pick from one of 144 countries you want to take it into, file the money, and we can press that patent out there into the world. But the key thing about international patents is twofold. One, you have to consider where you're actually going to do your business, right? If you spend $50,000 on a European patent and you don't know a single person in Europe and you don't have any vendors in Europe and you've never been to Europe, it's going to be hard to make that money back. You might be better suited working in Canada and the United States, right? The other one is enforceability. There are some really big markets like China where it's a fantastic jurisdiction to do business. You can get a lot of stuff done, but they don't have monetary judgments, so you're never going to get a big windfall of cash, and you might need to use the informal channels of the legal system to get what you want, greasing the wheels. So what jurisdictions are really realistic for you to make it happen? And so for the most part, I tend to stick to the common law jurisdictions of Canada, United States, Europe, maybe Australia. Sometimes you have strategic advantages. Like I have one client who manufactures her pharmaceuticals in Brazil, so we file patents in Brazil just because, you know, I have another client who's trying to negotiate an acquisition by Samsung, so they're filing some patents in Korea just for that strategic business reason. And I have had one client who said, I want a patent everywhere in the world. They had an invention around water purification. So they spent $1 million, literally, filing patents in 100 different countries on their water purification. We told them not to, but they said, I have $1 million and I want you to do it, so we did it. I think a more tailored strategy is wise. And then lastly, there's just nothing wrong with using your money to just file more US patents, because that's where you have the highest degree of enforceability, the most value, and the most likelihood to get a monetary judgment. And that's both for you and any potential licensees, because I've had licensees say, okay, great, you have US patents. Awesome, we want to license those. I'm like, oh, well, what about the European ones? They're like, we don't care. And I'm like, well, we spent $100,000 on them. They're like, well, good job. You know, so it's like you have to decide where is the business value.
So the question about AI. You talked about it in terms of developing intellectual property, but what about AI as a component of intellectual property?
Sure. Yeah.
What are you seeing there?
Yeah. So the challenge with patenting AI is you can't patent the black box. If you don't know what's happening in there, how can you do it, right? The only way that you get the other rule for getting a patent is you have to be able to describe your invention in such a way that a person of ordinary skill in the art can make and use your invention based on your disclosure, right? So if you lock a computer scientist up in a lab and they have all the bandwidth, all the computers, everything they need, you give them your patent, you walk away, they should be able to build your AI invention. If they can't, you're not entitled to a patent on it. Now, so that means you can't do things like input, black box, magic, output. You got to go deeper, right? You can get a patent. Well, that's right. You know, that's right. So so the first step is you can patent how to train the AI. Like if you have a special way of uploading the model or setting the model up, no problem. And the other one is if you're using the AI as part of a larger process. So this is how you train the AI. This is how you gather the inputs. This is what I want to do. Then I take the data and I convert it over. And then the last thing is really focus on something that's a deep tech purpose. And I'll give you an example. I had a client who has this really lucrative business where they go to cities, they help cities solicit bids. It's a very complex task. They have thousands of contractors, right? It's very complex. It's very valuable. They use AI to help. But that's just automation. That's just automating something you can do on paper. That's not going to necessarily work. There are other cases where somebody might use AI to take a certain file type, encrypt it, turn it into a new file type, put it on the blockchain, make it available in this new way, right? It's this deep technological process that converts one thing into another. That starts to look more like something you can patent. So that would be my answers there. And then the last one would be, better get cracking, because there's a lot of people with a lot of money filing a lot of patents on a lot of AI stuff right now. So you better get cracking, because you're dealing with the Sam Altmans and the John Ives of the world. It's going to get heavy.
So I was going to ask, how do we know that this product is going to be patentable or not? Like, how do we figure it?
Sure.
If it's a product or a software or something that we're working on as a startup or something, how do we know at what point that we should realize that, oh, this is something I'm going to be looking at patent?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you two answers to that question. One is there's something called 3 doors to patentability, the simplest way to describe it. The first door is, does your invention work, right? Is it a perpetual motion machine? Is your science wrong, right? As long as your science is good and it's a real thing, you're probably okay. And if it touches the earth, like it's some kind of object or software that makes an object, you're probably okay. The second one is novelty. Has anyone else thought of every single part of your idea? If your idea has A, B, C, and D, and there's a patent out there that talks about A, B, C, and D, that's a problem for you. And the last one is obviousness. Are there any 2 pieces of paper that can be combined? Is there an A and B and a C and D that it would be obvious to put those 2 together, right? Like I made a 3-wheeled car, somebody has a 4-wheeled car, okay, I can't get a patent on the 3-wheeled car because it's already done, right? Another way to answer your question is that you could do on your own is to have what I would call a ruin the party moment. Come up with kind of a generic way to express your idea. Go into patents.google.com, punch in, don't give away everything, but enough that you can find it. And then spend a couple hours looking at the first 100 results. Limit it to just the United States, just English, so that you can simplify it a little bit depending on your language skills. And if you don't find it in the first hour, it might not exist, right? And if you don't, that's just the reality. I can do a fancier search for you beyond that. I have this AI-powered search tool that Emily and I use to scan all the patent databases in the world, private, builds more contextual search, like it's way more detailed than you would ever put into something public like Google. But like going back to the 3-wheeled car, I would just type in 3-wheeled car and see what Google comes up with based on just the title. And if you don't ruin the party in the first hour, pretty good chance you might have something there. And I guess the last thing I'll share, a related question is what to patent. And there's 2 circles. One is it patentable? And the other circle is, do my consumers care? Right? If you have a feature that's patentable, but it's buried, no one even knows it exists, and you're a tiny company, and you've got $30,000 to spend on your patent, you really need to decide how important is that feature to you. Like there's about 10,000 patents on the iPhone, right? Most of them, we have no idea what they are, right? But that's different, because Apple's fighting Samsung, right? But your product might be different. It's just the key to focus on what truly has business value, and that goes back to the IP golden rule I was talking about earlier.
I always don't want to approach like philosophical. I'm not going to quote the original patent law in a general way, but I'd love to. So in the 90s, we had to know where the Anarchist Code was, right?
Say that again?
The Anarchist Code,
Yes.
We didn't know where it was, so we're talking about ideas, right? So new knowledge discovery. So now, we've got ChatGPT, other tools. I wanted to think about other tools we spend on this kind of see like AI maybe even disrupting the whole game a little bit. So that, like now it's like I'm going to bring this chemical to XYZ, catalyst, whatever, or maybe some new way to give people new knowledge discovery. So I don't, and as a mathematician, heck yeah, machine assistant proofs. I want this thing to help me complete these things. So I actually don't care. I use everything, including stuff I build and run locally, right? So I'm not using that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the key thing is to distinguish between discovery and invention, right? If you go out to the jungle and you search around, you find a new plant, and you realize that new plant has all these amazing uses, You can't patent the plant. You just found the plant. You didn't invent that, right? That's very similar to the outputs from a ChatGPT. But if you know that if I take that plant and I cook it and then I cut it up and then I freeze it and then I turn it into a powder and I put it into a pill and then people take it twice a day, they can get a treatment out of it, all that other stuff becomes part of your invention. And so my advice is simply, if you can take that other stuff and do it on your own without an AI and maybe file something first and then use the AI to sharpen it later, that's a better strategy. That's going to make you more likely to succeed in getting the rights you want. And look, not every single cool creation you do needs to be patented. So it's just kind of like, how strategic is this? Is this the foundational technology that the business is going to rely on? If so, do your own homework, file patents, and use ChatGPT to refine it later, and you will be better suited. Even if your disclosure isn't as good as it could have been, even if it's not robust, right? A patent disclosure doesn't have to describe everything perfectly. You have to be able to describe a genus. And once you have a genus described, you can have claims on the species. And so you just need to get enough to get there, and the more you can do yourself under the current case law, the better. Now that's not to say the case law won't change, right? That's not to say a time won't come when there's more flexibility in this, when more value on prompt engineering is, well, maybe why can't I just patent that engineered prompt by itself, right? Maybe we get there. But in the United States, under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8, the Supreme Court has held twice that for both patents and copyrights, those protections are limited to humans. Now again, if you don't need them for your business, and your business is speed to market, relationship with your customers, AKA brand, don't worry about it.
So is it autocomplete or not? So does that make the agent an entity legally?
Well, the agent can't be an entity. The agent can't be an inventor, period. Like, so if the invention came from the AI, it's a wonderful discovery. You should consider branding it, and to the extent you can, you should prevent others from finding out how you did it. Maybe that's a better strategy for you. But spending $25,000 on a patent might not get you the result you want. It might, who knows? I mean, you might even get your patent, right? You might have the piece of paper, and it may not matter. Maybe that piece of paper is enough for you to negotiate and do deals, but at some point somebody's gonna call you on it. And if they do, you just gotta know in the back of your head, I'm not gonna fall on this sword because this is a problem, and there you go.
Real quick, I'm currently possibly partnering with called Invention Land, and that's out in Pittsburgh. And basically, they want royalties on my inventions,
Yes.
patents, and things like that nature. And I'm combining soul and machine together. So where I'm at is like I'm patenting my process of how I gather soul, as what we would call it,
Yes.
in a scientific manner. I keep getting consistent results, so I'm looking into. Do I want to partner with somebody? Because I don't have thousands of dollars, so if I can partner with like Invention Land or share royalties with each other, is there other companies that you can possibly like finance?
Okay, that's a great question. Patents and all intellectual property rights are not self-enforcing. Once you get it, you can't often just call somebody up and be like, hey, give me money. You still got to sell. And if you're not the sales guy, somebody else has got to be the sales guy. And so a lot of those entities they'll buy your assets for not a lot of money, sometimes 10%, right? But the question is not so much whether or not you got that money. The question is, how hard are they going to work for you? Because if they've got yours and 1,000 other things, and you still have to go do all the work to go sell it, you got to look at it that way. And if you're not the guy to sell it, somebody else is the guy to sell it. Maybe you build a small team and you go sell it that way. But that's the way to look at it. But if you feel good that they're going to go out there and market it for you, great. I got one of my clients to get a law firm to represent them on contingency. Law firm didn't take them seriously until they had 15 patents and an infringer list that was into the hundreds of millions. So then they were like, okay, we're going to go start suing people. It took a long time to figure out. Took 5-6 years to figure that out before there was that much value. So the more of the work you do to support the IP asset with a business model, to build a business around it so that the IP is protecting an actual business, that's where you'll start to do better. So if you've got something that measures soul, and you can sell it transactionally and get people on board, if you can monetize it using normal business practices, you still want IP for when you might want to sell it to somebody else, but your IP may or may not, be monetized either way, really, But that doesn't mean you can't leverage it, and it doesn't mean it's not something you can't borrow against or securitize. It just, one patent by itself is a small army, and you need a bigger army sometimes, and really just knowing where to go with it is the logic. But happy to chat with you after further on that subject.
So I have an idea that you can strategically destroy patentability for your own inventions so that other people can't patent them
Yes.
and protect them for you. In my case, the reason why I chose to do that was I didn't think I could protect the invention and
Yes.
in existence. How would one know if they should do such a thing?
Well, it's a great question, and I don't have a really good answer for it. But once you publish your idea out there in such a way that somebody can make and use it based on your publication, so if it's a blog post and you throw it out there, the second it's published, you're going to lose rights in Europe, and you have a 1-year clock to file for something in the United States and Canada. Once that 1 year is up, you're out of time. It can no longer be patented. The patent party has been ruined for you and anybody else. But that's not always bad, right? It's the opposite solution to the problem we were just talking about with the soul. It's like, if I can't have it, I don't want anybody else to have it either, and I'd rather just have freedom to operate, because I'm never going to go around suing people. And at the end of the day, what's your moat then? Your moat is going to be your brand, your UI, UX. You just want to be left alone to do your own thing. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a perfectly viable strategy. Where I think patents are the most valuable are in biotech, in hardware, in things that you often put into people's hands. So they know exactly what it is, because they're going to buy it at the store and they're going to see it. Oh, this is a cup. It's got a handle and a lid. Like, there's no mystery there. So if you can have the patent on that before it goes to market, very valuable. Software, really hit or miss. Just from my experience, there are better attorneys at software patents, perhaps, but at the same time, perhaps there are those who will just take your money and write whatever you ask. So my strategy is always focus on the business. How is this going to help you make money? And if the answer is it isn't, or I don't care, then maybe it's just not for you. Maybe it is better to do the publication. That is a viable defensive strategy out there to do it, right? Great. And somebody asked about offensive versus defensive strategies. That's a great example of a defensive strategy. Filing patents that are very narrowly directed to your own stuff is another defensive strategy. An offensive strategy is when you have a patent that you filed in 2021, your competitor releases a product in 2025 that infringes your patent, so you mine your specification and write a set of claims that directly covers your competitor. You get a patent and you mail it to them with an FU letter and you ask for some money. That's a different strategy.
All right. One last question. Sorry, was running out of time.
Thank you. You're a great speaker. I'm very passionate about this. That was wonderful. Can you see the timeline we have once we implement processes and start to use our design in our actual company to patent?
Yeah.
Once you patent,
Yep.
what do we have as a runway on?
Understood. Europe has what they call an absolute bar to novelty. So the second your idea is out to anyone who's not under a duty to disclose it, so under an NDA, under an employment agreement, it's out. You can no longer patent in Europe. That market is out. And there are many markets like that. The United States and Canada are grace period countries. So if you have a process and you've been selling it for the last 6 months, you're okay. You have up to 1 year from whenever you put it out to the market. That includes disclosing it, selling it, offering it to sell it. Anytime you put an enabling disclosure into somebody's hands or the actual product into their hands and they can figure out what it is, you got 1 year from that date. You need to take action. And if you're low on funds or you're not certain what to do and the 1 year date's coming up, sometimes a crappy provisional is better than nothing. Sometimes just like, let's just, I've had clients be like, okay, here's my budget. I got this amount of money. I got 2 weeks. What can you do? And I'm like, well, it's not going to be as good as if you would give me more money and more time, but I will do it right away. And it ends up sometimes being exactly what was needed, right? Because in the IP world, there's so much nice to have. There's so much it would be nice to have a patent on every aspect before we go to market. That doesn't always happen. So sometimes you just got to take what you can get and make the most of the resources you have. But the actual timeline is 1 year for whenever it got out, whenever anybody offered to sell it. You got to track those deadlines. And you know, if you're not going to go to Europe, it's okay to leverage that to your advantage. You know, because earlier I was saying you need to sell. So the second you're like, okay, well, how does anybody care about this process? And if you've had 10 calls in the last week, said, hey, what about that thing? Here's what I really like about that. And that's the magic part. Listen, and then file it, and rely on your grace period. Just give whoever's helping you more than a couple days when it comes up to that year, and as much money as they ask for. Maybe no, I'm kidding. Whatever you could afford, all that good stuff. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Matt.
Yeah.
I know there's more questions. Please feel free to grab them afterwards. Definitely here for a while and answer all your questions. And I know this is definitely a way to help you, but is there anyone maybe that one else can do to support you in your business?
You guys are already doing it. You know, get out here. It's so hard to sustain the momentum as an early inventor, entrepreneur, whatever it is. So sometimes groups like this, if that person's doing it, I can do it. If I'm suffering from something, I bet that person is too. And the ability to come together and share connections like this is you're already doing everything that you can do. And opportunities like this are great just for me to get out and introduce myself. But I mean, at the end of the day, when I wear my attorney hat, I am a service provider. So I'm here to help you guys do what you need to do.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Let's give another round of applause.
Thank you.
So much stuff for that.
Thank you.
All right, well, next week we have the first
Yeah.
Cox coming at us with My Personal Assistant. So please sure to be here next week to check that out. And then,
You did great, bro.
after